Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is how having weight loss goals messed up my mindset. And if you're here listening today, you might have had weight loss goals for yourself in the past, and you might feel like having some of those goals kind of messed up your mindset too, which is why we're going to talk about this in 3 different sections today. The first thing we're going to talk about is how mindset and food have anything to do with each other. Like, how did this all start? And next, we're going to talk about how having a meal plan and weight loss goals actually convinces you to feel pretty terribly about yourself. And lastly, I'm going to give you 3 clear and simple steps so that you can start to plan for different outcomes that lead you to lasting results without all of the food rules and diet culture paradigms. And yes, I said the word paradigms, which is really exactly what diet culture is. As always, I want you to remember that this is an interactive podcast, so you might want to have a pen and paper ready so that you can write some stuff down. And just so you know that the information that I provide here on this podcast is based on insights that helped me and decades of emotional eating, self-doubt, shame, guilt, self-sabotaging behavior that came from having an all or nothing mindset around food. I ended this vicious cycle by taking a journey of self-discovery and now help hundreds of women worldwide empower themselves with positive thoughts, caring connections, and loving choices from themselves. This is not meant to replace any medical advice or give any mental health suggestions that go against what your doctor recommends. So let's dive in. The first thing we're going to talk about is mindset and food. What the heck do they even have to do with each other? Now, I want to take you back to when I was a kid, and maybe you have some of these memories as well. Maybe some of these stories will be relatable to you, so that way you can really point yourself in a direction towards how this all began. When I was a kid, I loved those food rules. I don't know about you, but like the whole an apple a day keeps the doctor away, or like what's up, doc? And carrots are good for your eyes, and like milk, it does the body good. I had all of these little phrases and sayings in my head, and I always wanted to follow the rules. I love checking off boxes in my head. I thought, oh, we're supposed to eat an apple a day. So like I actually tried to do that. And I really enjoyed knowing what I was supposed to do. Plus, in PE class in elementary school, they taught me that food was fuel. And I remember it being described as gasoline in a car. My body was the car and food was the gas. So the food gave me energy so that I could run and play. And when I ran out of energy, I'd have to fill up on food again. Everything was so simple when I was a child. And it really felt that simple in my head. Like everything made so much sense to me. So how did that all change? When did my mind get involved? And how did I get stuck focusing on food to begin with? Where did I mix up all the messages about food being fuel and use food instead as a way to stuff down my feelings, or to comfort me when I felt sad, or to be a companion when I was bored and lonely, or something that I could rely on when I felt stuck and depend on as a friend that wouldn't judge me? When the heck did I decide that food had so much power over me? And speaking of power, just so you know, if you haven't listened to the episode before this one on willpower, I want to inspire you to go back and have a listen because it's a really good one. In fact, I give you permission to go back and binge listen to all 27 episodes before this because each one is going to inspire you to take a different form of action to help fix emotional eating for good. All right, let's get back to how food became a focus and how having a meal plan really messed up my mindset. Okay, so it all started with fear-based thoughts about myself and my body image. So tell me if you can relate. Somewhere along the lines of my young life, probably as I stepped into becoming a teenager, I got the idea that I could look better if I ate better. Someone had given me the idea. I learned it in a magazine. I listened to friends who were actually, dieting even at 11 or 12 years old. And I decided in my head that if I looked better, I would be liked better. And being liked was really, really important to me. I was one of those kids who had plenty of friends, but I never really felt like I fit in with the cool group, at least the group of kids that I thought was the cool group. And so I never was invited to hang out with those kids. Maybe I had individual friends, but I never felt like I was part of a group. So I always felt like there was this huge desire to be liked more. Well, once I attached that thought to my weight, well, then game on. And so when I started to work out, actually, even as an 11-year-old, I felt empowered and strong and confident. And I felt like I had all of the self-esteem in the world when I was, 12 years old or 11 years old, watching my Jane Fonda video, which actually was really what started me into the initiation of working out. But I had it attached to looking better so that then I could be liked better. That's where I got messed up. So I feel like when I went into that space where I was then using the thought of losing weight and calorie counting and exercise to look better so I could be liked better, I kind of let my ego get the best of me. And I feel really certain that my happiness started to live somewhere outside of myself. And that's where, this metaphoric carrot that was dangling in front of my eyes of like, I'll be happy when, got my mindset to train me to believe that the grass was always going to be greener on the other side. And I've since learned that I'll be happy when really means that I'm not really paying attention or watering the grass that I have now. So I've since learned through changing my mindset, through taking a journey of self-discovery, that the grass is never greener on the other side. It's always just greener where you water it. The thing is that I was in a spiritual drought in my mind. My great ideas of meal planning and goal planning with exercise and weight loss only convinced me to squash my self-esteem because I mixed up all of the good habits that eating well and working out and, nutritional knowledge, for all intent and purposes, like should have given me. And I used all of that same stuff to judge myself and feel left out and isolate myself. So I'm not blaming anyone or anything. How I felt this way about myself was really through the influence of my own self-esteem. Where I felt like I lacked confidence, I suddenly plugged in some of these pieces that I felt like, oh, of course, if I looked better, then I would be more liked. And I sort of used this negative intention for my own lack of self-worth. But that didn't really start with diet. It's just that I plugged in the pieces and made it about food. I made it about my looks. And even with that being said, none of it actually led me towards the good feelings that I really wanted to have about myself. It's just about the awareness that I didn't know already at the time when I was even 11, 12 years old, that I was already locked into having an all or nothing mindset. And so I stayed there for a really long time, and I didn't realize how damaging it was to my self-worth. And I didn't realize how my spiritual voice, my goodness inside of me, just got minimized and dimmed, and how I allowed that to happen through the influences of outside things. So many of the women that I work with in my Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, which is where I coach women to take a journey of self-discovery so that they can identify the pieces of the puzzle that are missing for them. Like some of the things that I already knew about myself, I knew how it all started. And some parts I actually prided myself in. I was like, wow, I started working out when I was 11. I started, thinking about food rules when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old. Like I sort of felt like that was something that was part of me. It was like it created my identity. Yet at the same time, some parts of it actually dimmed my own light. And it kept me stuck in this invisible vortex that I just didn't know how to get out of until I took a journey of self-discovery well into my 40s. Now, most of the women that I work with in Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and we've even had students in their 80s. And all of these students share the same common interest. They have all been stuck in the diet mindset for decades, making the same mistakes over and over and over again, which is why I know that meal plans and weight loss goals have to become a thing of the past so that you can learn something new, because these diet plans and meal plans and all that stuff, they only teach you one specific thing. They teach you how you cannot be trusted, how you cannot be loved or feel belonging within yourself until you reach that weight loss goal. And that's a fictitious, made up statement. It's just not true. And it creates a paradigm that you'll be happy when. It also continues that path where your thinking is geared towards the grass is going to be greener on the other side when I just reach that weight loss goal. But the thing is, it's really just false. And I see it over and over again. And the stop that you keep putting in place for yourself is where you're stopping yourself from allowing yourself to think a new way. So we've said this before in other podcasts. I've said this before in other podcasts. A closed mind cannot accept any new ideas. So you can write that down, and it doesn't matter to me if you've written it down 100 times already. Write it down again and put your name in front of it. It's always really good to put your name in front of it, to remind yourself, hey, where can I open my mind? Where do I have a belief system stuck in a place? Where have I just had all of these diet rules and this diet culture and these paradigms and these belief systems locked into place that I will only be happy when I follow my meal plan and when I lose this weight? It's just not true. So you have to be able to open your mindset so that you can heal these past beliefs and you can learn to love yourself with your whole heart. Once you love yourself with your whole heart, you'll naturally end up wanting to make the best decisions for yourself. I actually had ice cream last night, and I had gotten a small size, and yet the small size was really quite large. And in the past, I would have kind of delighted in like, ooh, yay, I'm only getting ice cream this one time. Like, I'm going to have to eat this all. And even if I didn't want to finish it, I would have forced myself to finish it because I would have told myself, well, this is my one treat and I've got to get back on the diet train tomorrow. Because I don't have any of those food rules and it's not this like big thing that I am going to eat ice cream, it really doesn't matter to me. So I was able to eat what I wanted to. And then I decided that that was enough and I threw the rest away. It wasn't a big deal anymore. I didn't make it all or nothing because my mindset is not stuck in an all or nothing pattern anymore. And if you don't go in and heal this, you will stay stuck in a pattern like I did for decades, not trusting your own intuition, feeling like everything has to be this state of emergency. I mean, do I really think I'm 52 years old, right? Do I really think I'm never going to have ice cream again? This is the last time I'm ever going to eat it. I have to eat it right now. Like, that's just a lot of exhaustion. And honestly, it's just false. It's false and it's fear-based. And if you think about fear as being false evidence appearing real, and also knowing that it's not something that you have to like bank all your money on. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And so once you can learn about yourself, like how this all started, then you won't be so food focused and you won't have to keep these high level emergency beliefs going on, and food will just become food again. And I know this to be true because when I actually did reach my specific weight goals in the past and I, tried to just eat normally again, at the time, because I was so stuck in such an all or nothing mindset, I actually felt so deprived by the time that I reached my weight goal that I ended up binging and gaining back the weight. And that's how I know that now, because I'm in more of a such an open mindset and like the food is nothing to me. It's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. I am, what do they say? Eating to live, not living to eat. And in the past, everything was so food focused that it was like I was living to eat. And so now, because I don't have that problem anymore, and I don't have these weight loss goals, and in reality, my weight is not that different than it ever was my entire life because I always lived in that all or nothing mindset. So I was constantly on a diet. And it just feels different. It might not look different from the outside. It might not. I eat very healthfully, so it might look like I'm on a diet. I just know I'm not, because I want to choose foods that naturally feel good to my body. And if I'm eating an ice cream or having something like that, I know that if I eat too much of it, I'm not going to feel good. So I want to feel good. That's my highest priority. I like myself too much to make myself feel bad, physically, mentally, energetically speaking, spiritually. Like I want to be able to listen to my own inner voice. And because I don't have all the contamination in my mindset that I used to coming from my ego, now I actually can hear my inner voice, which is a really helpful thing. So before, I felt so contradicting because every time that I tried to reach for that weight loss goal, it took so much effort because I didn't have this broader view. Everything was so stuck in such a narrow place that honestly, if I felt amazing from, I don't know, even if before, if I had taken that ice cream and just kind of strong armed myself and be like, I'm not finishing this thing, I'm going to throw it away. It might have felt great for a minute, but it would have lasted a very short amount of time. And I really would have felt deprived. And then my mindset would have felt scared again. I might be thinking like, oh no, okay, I did it this time. I resisted this time. I had willpower this time, but can I really maintain this forever? And then if I don't, what's going to happen? Am I going to gain the weight again? What will people think of me if they see me eating pizza or ice cream? Like, will they think that I'm off my diet? And then will I completely blow it? And will they not like me if I'm not as thin as maybe I am right now when I was on one of my real weight loss cycles, right? So because all of this was fear, I basically lived on a constant diet. And then I had this binge eating thing that was on the other side of it. And then I also had an overexercise thing. I convinced myself that thin equaled attractive. And in our society, I felt like I blamed society for making this a thing. Well, of course I did, because I used that when I was a little kid. It was like the first thought that came to my head when I was little. I will be liked better if I am thin. If I am thin, people in my, cool group that aren't accepting me, that I don't feel like I fit in with, they'll now accept me. So I made it about something that was outside of myself, but it was also coming from a really immature mindset. Fast forward 30, 40, 50, 60, and you're still feeling this way. That's going to be a real hindrance on your self-acceptance. I didn't feel like I judged anyone else for not being thin, but I convinced myself that people would not like me if I wasn't thin, which is such a sad and isolating way to live, especially when I was actually judging other people for judging me. I was handing over my own power to other people and then using them as an excuse for why I had to treat myself in such an all or nothing fear-based way. So ask yourself this question. Are you living in this all or nothing mindset? Are you living in this fear-based way too? What is your version of this similar story? So I want you to be able to write this down for yourself. What is your story? And you can even write this down as a practice. Ask yourself, who would I be without my story? All right, so let's wrap this part up. What did you learn today so far? Number one, you learned that weight loss goals convince you to think badly about yourself, and they convince you to feel like you're somehow or another fundamentally flawed, or like you don't deserve to be happy until you lose the weight. Number two, we learned that it's going to be super important to shift your perspective from weight loss. And I'm going to suggest that you start to think about everything in your life as life gain. If you start to focus on gaining a new perspective of life itself, you'll gain a natural access to really learning who you are as a human being and what serves your best interest. And then you're naturally going to want to eat foods that support your best interest simply because you like yourself that much. Just like I did the other day, you are going to be able to, even if you are reaching for a third cookie and you take a bite of it, you're going to be able to put that cookie down. I want to inspire you to think really, really big. I was coaching someone the other day and we were talking about going on a cruise. And she was saying, well, I just don't trust myself to go on this cruise. The buffet is going to be there. And oh my gosh, and they'll have to roll me off the ship. I know myself. I know that every day, I'm going to be gaining and gaining and gaining. I'll gain 30 pounds before I leave this cruise in 7 days. And I explained to her, I said, you're thinking too small. I said, because you're looking at this buffet and then you're plugging in a version of yourself that you're stuck with right now. Sky's the limit. Could you imagine looking at, food as being food instead of seeing a whole buffet and you can't trust yourself? Could you imagine looking at a piece of cheese on a table and saying, do I want to eat that? Yes. Do I want to eat 40 pieces of cheese? No, I'll take one. Thank you. Could you imagine then looking at another piece of food on the table, another item of food on the table? Oh, what is this? Oh, Caesar salad. Great. Do I want to take this huge bowl? No, I'll just take a little piece because I would like that. Can you imagine then looking at other foods on a table of food and saying, yeah, I'm actually full. I'm not going to take that. And being okay with that. Can you imagine? Can you envision that for yourself? If you can't, you're thinking too small. And I want you to remind yourself that a closed mind cannot accept any new ideas. So if you're thinking too small, that means that your mindset is closed and narrow. And unless you open it, you will not ever be able to think new thoughts. And then, a buffet is going to be really freaking scary to you. But I want you to think bigger than that. I know that you can do this because if I can do it, then you can too. If not you, who? Period. End of story. And also, you can also write this down. If not now, when? Like if you can envision a version of yourself that, yeah, Lisa, great, I can do that. I'll work on that next year. No, you'll work on it right now through changing your micro decisions about being self-interested, period. End of story. No longer will you be waiting for other people to like you and accept you because you'll have yourself on your own team. You'll stop calling yourself names. You'll stop telling yourself you can't be trusted. You'll stop punishing yourself for being bad or for eating something that's not on your perfect diet plan. You'll never have to convince yourself to overeat, only so that later you can be upset with yourself. You will no longer have to live to eat. You will simply eat to live. Food will become an afterthought and your heart center will be focused and aligned with you. So the last thing we're going to do today is I'm going to give you 3 clear and simple action steps. So now I want you to write this down. If you're feeling insecure about yourself and you think that it came from a diet culture or that you have had someone in your life tell you that you could look a little better if you lost a little weight, if there's memories in your head, if you have a parent figure that was like, ooh, you better stop eating that. Or, hey, I'm going on Weight Watchers. Why don't you come with me? Hint, hint. And now you're 9 years old and suddenly your siblings get to sit at the table having piece of bread after piece of bread after piece of bread. But you were pointed out when you reached for the next piece of bread and you were like, whoa, that's not on your points, You were singled out. And this happens a lot because it feels like it's just external thing, like you were the one that was, pudgy or chubby or whatever, and you had all these siblings and it wasn't showing on the outside, and yet the habits seem to be the same. You're like, why can't I have the next piece of bread when everybody else is? That doesn't feel good. But the thing is that even though that may have created a self-doubting voice in your head, anybody can put self-doubt in your head. You're the only one that can accept it. So I want you to write this down very specifically. You cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you love. So if you're not going to start treating yourself nicely, you're probably going to keep gaining and losing the same 50 pounds for the rest of your life. And I just want to ask you, how's that going for you? Probably not great. So the second thing is we have to stop having weight loss goals and instead decide that you want to gain life. Life gain is the way to go because you're going to be able to see a new perspective. So even that little girl that may have been told, ooh, you know what? Not another piece for you. Hold off there, Missy. I want you to be able to even see that version of you from a wider lens and a kindness that maybe you didn't feel like you were deserving of when you were a kid. And now you're not that little kid anymore. You're you. So you're whatever, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, it's just that you're not in that same place now. So the way that you feel about yourself can become a new thing now. That's how you're going to gain a new perspective. And that's how you're going to be able to plan for the outcomes that you're looking for. You want to gain a new perspective on your life. And with a new perspective and a shift in your mindset, you're naturally going to make great decisions for yourself. And your body, given half the chance, will heal itself. Weight is a symptom of an underlying problem. And so you're going to be able to shift your perspective on your life and you'll be able to make choices that serve your best interest all the time. So nutrition is not rocket science. So if you're not a competitive athlete or you're not on a diet for a medical reason, you're going to want to ditch the meal plans. And you're also going to want to ditch your food counters, your food journals, your diet system, your points system, your metabolism lifters. And unless you're taking some medication from your doctor, really for medical reasons, and you are in an open mindset and you're not taking the approach of a diet culture. So there are reasons to be on these medications. It's just that it's not going to work well if your heart is not aligned with your best intentions and if the intentions that you have are just so that you can lose weight so that other people accept you. That's never going to work. It's always going to backfire on you, period. So we want to be able to produce what's called a solutions mindset, because if we keep focusing on the problem, then you're always going to get more problems. And the problems that you're going to be on rinse and repeat with are probably going to be the same problems that started the whole problem to begin with. I wholeheartedly believe that if I had never gone on my first restrictive diet, and if I had listened to my own intuition without feeling fundamentally flawed in some way, if I had been able to accept myself just the way I was, and if I had been able to come up with the idea that, hey, you know what? I'm eating 3, 4, 5, 10 cookies at a time, and I don't really feel good about myself. Like if I had been able to come up with that on my own, I probably naturally would have just decided, you know what, this isn't really what I want to eat anymore. But I didn't do that. I listened to other people. I heard supposed to's and shoulds, and I heard different things. And then I got stuck in a very narrow fear-based mindset. And I'm pretty certain that if you're here and you're listening to this and you're struggling, that perhaps you did too, because I feel like that was the part that ignited the other side of it, which was a binge eating disorder. Because I was so stuck in an all or nothing mindset, because I was so scared of what other people would think of me. If I walked into a supermarket, and this happened actually, this was a thing that happened. I was a personal fitness trainer. I was 19 years old. I had just started with new clients, and I was really excited to, be embracing this, diet lifestyle. And I thought I knew everything about nutrition. And I was living with a boyfriend, and he had asked me to buy him some Fruity Pebbles or Captain Crunch or something. And so I was in the supermarket and I had my perfect little foods in my cart. And I also had that cereal in my cart. And down from the aisle walks the new client that I have. And I see her and I stop, and I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm like, "Hi, how are you?" And she's like, "Hi." And she looks down at my cart and she's like, "Oh, I, I knew you couldn't eat so perfectly." And I was like, and I was like, "Oh, no, those aren't for me." And she was like, mm-hmm. And it just twisted my mindset around. And again, I'm not blaming anybody. This is my own confidence in myself. I didn't have any. And so because that confidence was already low to begin with, and I was already looking outside of myself for happiness, I then took that and was like, "Oh my gosh, I can never let anybody see me eat anything." And from that day forward, you would never in a bazillion years see me eating anything in public that was not considered a diet food. And that is what flipped me into being alone and secretly binge eating, because that was the only time that I could do it. And so it was like the worst version of myself was the one that I was showing to myself. And I thought I was alone, but I wasn't. I was seeing me, but I had forgotten about me, and I had dimmed my own light so much that I didn't know the type of spiritual damage that I was doing to myself. I had no idea. Now that I know better, I can do better. So, is it time for some new thoughts for you? I want you to think about this quote from Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, Eat, Pray, Love. She says, "Once upon a time, in an unguarded moment, you were your best friend." And this essentially means that at some point in your life that you looked at yourself with acceptance and understanding, and it felt like you were with a close friend. You recognized your own worth, and you saw flaws as being opportunities, not judgments. You saw failure as being a first attempt in learning, and you used mistakes to redirect yourself. You didn't contaminate your mind with this all or nothing, and you were accepting of so many things about yourself. That's your birthright. And so if you've forgotten that, it's time to step into a new mindset, to gain a new perspective at life. So if there's one thing that I can convince you of today, it's to stop having weight loss goals and start stepping into your power. I used to think that I had to do everything right. I had to check off all the boxes to be accepted. I thought that if I was going to be climbing this mountain, that I was doing it so other people could see what I had accomplished. And this included my weight and my body image and my looks. It was really important to me that other people thought that I looked good. And now I realize that the only reason why I would ever want to climb a mountain is so that I could see the world differently. So I'm going to give you that quote, and so that way you can write it down. It's, "Don't climb a mountain so that the world can see you. Climb a mountain so that you can see the world." Because the effort's there either way. And yet you're going to see that with a new perspective of the whole big picture, you're going to just naturally and intuitively know what to do. And I'm not talking about intuitive eating, because that's a thing that is taught. Intuition is inside of yourself. You were already born with a bright light inside of you. That is your intuition. You know it. It's there. You don't have to learn it. What you do have to do is you do have to unlearn some of the diet rules and some of the diet culture that you have used to dim your own personal power. So, staying away from weight loss goals has allowed me to remind myself that I am already trustworthy. I already love and accept myself right where I am. And now I can stay in alignment with my integrity. I can use my intuition and I can make really clear choices from my whole heart. And you can too. All you have to do is stop setting weight loss goals and start planning for the outcomes that you deserve. All right, so this week we have a special opportunity. It is called the Manifest the Outcomes Workshop. So right now, as this podcast is being recorded, it is January. So a lot of times in January, people do New Year's resolutions. And I used to do them for decades myself. And the resolutions that I had were always weight loss goal oriented. And now that I know better, I can do better. And so I want to be able to inspire you to plan for the outcomes you want. Now, what that means is that you're going to have to already envision the outcome that you have if you already have it. And then you're going to have to start working backwards, just as if you decided that you wanted to have a sunflower. What's going to happen first? You're not only going to have to plant a seed to grow that sunflower, you're going to have to research what type of sunflower you want. You're going to have to also research what type of soil a sunflower is, used to have really good growth. You're going to have to make sure that you go to the store to get the seeds to plant the sunflower. Like, there's so much preliminary work done before you end up being able to produce even the right environment to plant the seed. Then if you want a sunflower, it's not like you plant a seed and then you dig it up every day and look and see if it's growing. You just leave it there. But when you leave it there, you know that you're going to be nourishing that seed with water and sunlight and, I don't know, talk to the earth and say, hey, little sunflower, I know you're in there. I want you to grow. So you're going to help that sunflower grow in any which way you can. And when that little sprout pops up, you're going to be so excited to have patience and kindness and understanding. And you're going to want to naturally nurture that sunflower to grow. Well, that's the same thing that you're going to do for planning outcomes for yourself. So in the show notes this week, there is a link to sign up for the Plan the Outcomes workshop. If you're listening to this at a different time, you can instead take an opportunity to join the Mindset Makeover, which is always a course that we run. And if you haven't done it yet, my friend, what are you waiting for? Take an opportunity. If you're listening to these podcasts, and you're enjoying them, then you're going to really love getting a bite-sized piece of what self-discovery is. So there's a link in the show notes. Sign up for the Mindset Makeover today. All right. I will see you all next time. And that's all for now. Bye now. All right, my beautiful friend, that brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.